What's up, guys, and welcome to the Rebalance podcast, where we dive into topics that matter most when it comes to overcoming struggles, injuries, and finding balance in your life. Everybody's idea of balance is that bit different, so my goal is to give you different perspectives, practical tips, as well as expert insights into what it means to live a balanced life. My name is Robbie Cassidy. I'm a physiotherapist and a health coach, and I've been helping people reignite their love for challenge, overcome their fear, and find more balance in their life through the process of self-development. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. On this episode of the podcast, we have a fellow Clare man. We are inviting Sheamie Parra of Parra Fitness on. Sheamie is a transformation coach. Many of you may know him through Instagram. And delighted to get him on. So, Sheamie, thanks a million for jumping on. Do you want to talk a small bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do at the moment?
Yeah, cool. So, as you said, a Clare man myself. So, grew up in Clare. Just had a stint in Colombia for a couple of years. My father's Colombian, so grew up there for a little while, but lived the majority of my life, kind of childhood, I suppose, growing up in Clare. Basically, growing up all my years, played sport. We played sport anyway, but I don't know how good we were, but we played sports all the way up, kind of up along. And then around, I suppose, the age of 16 is kind of when we really started getting into kind of, I suppose, the gym side of things, and kind of made that my main priority. And just kind of really, I suppose, fell in love with that kind of side of things more so than the kind of sports side of things. And then, as that kind of just kind of was just relentless with that in terms of just training myself, kind of, eating what I thought was healthy foods, kind of doing my thing, and kind of started educating myself from there. The bodybuilding forums, I don't know, do you remember them? Is kind of where we started off on that. Bits from YouTube and stuff, and just kind of started kind of progressing from there, I suppose. And always kind of done training, always kind of resistance trained, tried to look after my nutrition, but obviously kind of went through periods of stuff, went to college, kind of took the back seat, but it was always just kind of something that kept popping up that I actually, just always felt much better when I was doing it. So kind of kept creeping back in, and just kind of, I suppose, fell in love with it really, and just fell in love with the whole process and the journey of it.
Yeah, it is something that once you get into it and once you start to learn more about it, it's like it's an endless, there's endless amounts of information on where you can go with it, what ways you want to focus on it. Who were the main influencers, or who were the main people that had an impact on it as you were growing up? Who did you see mostly? I know you mentioned the bodybuilding forums there, like Christian Guzman, or who were the guys that stood out to you most?
You know what? It's funny, actually. Christian Guzman, I'm only after kind of really getting into him now as well. I'm only kind of came across, I've always heard of him, but I'm only kind of started to listen to his podcasts and stuff now. But no, it actually wasn't him. I suppose it was kind of, I was in Galway, man. I was in the warehouse gym. I was up there. And that was kind of when I first really, really got into, I remember looking at your man. Do you remember that guy? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. There was one guy in particular that just had a ridiculous physique. I remember thinking that was insane. Like, so that was kind of, he was like a big motivation for him. I can't think of the name.
It's not Ulysses, no? Do you remember your man Ulysses? Did you ever see him?
Like the kind of guy with black hair.
Yeah, ridiculous black guy, reckless, reckless shape.
So I think he was like popping off at the time.
Yeah,
him, Arnold Schwarzenegger. But then, I remember like listening to Brian Keane a lot from Galway. To be fair, so I actually learned a lot from him at the start. Then it was like I had kind of Mike Fatboy Slim was another guy, another kind of, it was a close friend of mine at the time. It was my coach. Kind of looked up to him a lot in terms of he helped me a lot in the fitness game and stuff like that as well. So they were kind of the main people, and I suppose just kind of watching different random clips on YouTube and stuff were kind of really what kind of started getting me into it.
So, and when you started building your way into it, what were the triggers? Do you remember any triggers that really said, okay, right, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to set my, I don't want to say early days that you knew straight away that you were going to set your life around working in the fitness industry, but is there any points along the journey that you remember, okay, right, that was a sticking point. That was something that really made me increase my interest in it massively at the time.
So, funnily enough, actually, so I went to college. I done event management. So I'd done nothing with sports in it. Went to college, done event management, done 3 years of that, and I don't know how I even got through it, to be honest, man. But I just kind of got through it. Didn't really learn much about that. I didn't really have an interest in it. I was just going to college to get a degree, and I suppose my mother would have been a big part in that. Like, I probably would have dropped out, being honest, but for my mother was kind of like, you're finishing it, it's what it is. So then So then I was like, I remember there was a good group of us the last kind of couple of years in college. We were big into the training and stuff like that. So that was good. But then finished college, was actually working in a factory for like 6 months. So I was working in a factory and I just knew that wasn't for me. So then 6 months of that, I was like, okay, I need to get out of Ireland, I think maybe just for a little bit, just kind of experience
Okay.
something new. So went to Canada, and in Canada, then again, completely nothing to do with training. It was like focus. I was like started working in like construction and just kind of actually just kind of like landscape and paving, doing like a lot of physical jobs like that. But I was always training all the way up along. And then I remember, so then it was kind of heavily, we were just kind of, was like in a house. It was kind of like, it was nearly like a party house. And it was like, it got to the stage where we were like on it every fucking weekend, like Friday, Saturday on it, recovering Sunday, and is back into the routine of that. So I was like, that was kind of what my first year in Canada was. I was like, okay, this needs to stop. So kind of moved out there, started really taking my kind of training seriously again. As I said, I was always training, but started taking it seriously again. Actually got an online coach. And then I remember within the first like 12 weeks, I was like, holy fuck, like this is like literally the results that I've wanted to be getting my whole life within the space of this time. So I was like, okay, there's definitely something in this. So then I started doing my online course. It was like an ACE, I think it was like the American one at the time. And I was like taking a lot of like people on board kind of as I was learning, I suppose, like case studies in a way. And then like, I suppose when it really clicked with me that I was like, I've been doing my course, I was getting up, I was working like 14-hour days, like between transport and everything. But outside of that, I was getting up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was doing like my 2 hours of study, and then I'd go away to work. I'd come home, prep my meals, go to the gym, and then just that was on repeat for about 6 days per week. And then all day Sunday, just studying. So I remember just thinking like, holy fuck, like I'm really interested in this. I'm getting up before work. There's never a time in my life when I was actually this like interested in something and wanted to make something happen. And I'd been with the coach and I'd kind of seen how it worked. And I was like, it's like, this is something that I could potentially do with myself. And then I started working with, as I said, clients and stuff, started getting results with them. But I think that was kind of when I was in Canada, that time, that was the trigger. I remember like, I'm finishing a block of work, looking in the mirror and just being like, fucking hell, I'm going to make something out of this, like 100%. I knew it in myself, like, I'm putting the work into this. I've never done anything like this in my life where I'm up before work, putting in the graft and looking forward to doing it, coming home again. So I was like, that was kind of one trigger when I was like, yeah, I think this is definitely going to take off. Then, as I said, yeah, just working with clients. Then I was actually traveling in Colombia I was meant to go traveling in Colombia for 4 weeks. We ended up doing 2 weeks and then fucking COVID hit. So then ended up, couldn't get back into Vancouver because of something about permanent residency and something like that. So all my life was in Canada. I had to fly home to Ireland. And then in Ireland, obviously, I literally just went all in on business side of things then, and it just kind of took off from there.
Nice. And I think that's a poignant point in terms of the fact that you need to go to the point that everything is like, I hear the way you were talking there about going out on a Friday night, going out on a Saturday night, like, and you're really in the darkest stages there on the Sunday, Monday after those days.
Oh man, you hate yourself.
you hate yourself.
Thursday again.
Yeah, and it's not that a cycle that people break too easily either. And I think that's part of it as well. That's part of the learning experience, because I know myself that I've been through that as well, and that especially when training, when you see the other side of things, when you actually start to focus on the training, you focus on the health and fitness side of things, how much of a difference that makes to your mindset, like the way you think, your life, everything after it. Did you notice that as well?
Clarity. You're not just going about like when you were in that kind of cycle, and I was in it for so long, even when I was in college and stuff, I was like like 4 or 5 times a week. Like, but when you're out of that and then you're just kind of actually doing things like even if it's not going to the gym, if it's like Vancouver was class for like hiking, for going to lakes, for that stuff, you just like you start thinking differently, and you kind of start like, oh, I suppose your mental clarity is so much clearer, your energy levels is so much clearer, and you start to feel good in yourself, and it's like, okay, why would I go back to that side of things? Like,
yeah, and it's funny, I don't know how else to describe it, but it feels like you're in a cave for a couple of days, and as you said, it is a cycle. Like, it does start on a Thursday, starts on a Friday, you're trying to come out then, and then you finally start feeling good on a Wednesday, and then you're thinking, oh shit, like I have to face into this weekend again, now the same thing is going to happen. So I know a lot of people get stuck in that cycle.
Because it's just the norm as well, and it's when it's the norm, I think it's hard to get out of that. Yeah. So like if everyone's doing, and don't get me wrong, it's fucking the best, like that. some crack. It was the best crack ever at the start. When it just goes on and it's like a year and it's like every weekend's the same thing. It's just like it actually came to a point where I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. So that's when I knew it had to change. Like, if you're enjoying it, okay, whatever. But if it comes to the point where you're just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it, you're not enjoying it, then I think it's like, yeah, you just kind of have to have a look at it and just try pull yourself out of that, like distance yourself from people and shit as well, like just to kind of focus on what's going to make you feel good. And I suppose just what's going to benefit you rather than just kind of staying stuck in a cycle because it's the norm, we'll say.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. Me and Dobbins were talking about that recently on a podcast of the idea of having to change your environment is so important for some people that are getting stuck in the same thing over and over again. And I know this is obviously a massive kind of segue in terms of the severity of it, but they had the idea of the Vietnam War years ago, and they had, let's say, when the soldiers were over there and when the war was finishing up, there was a huge heroin problem at the time in Vietnam because a lot of them were taking it. And there was a lot of people addicted, and the government expected everyone to come back addicted when they came back. But when they did, the addiction rates of what the amount, let's say, I don't know what the exact stats are, but it was extremely high. It was over 50% of people had tried heroin, had maybe taken heroin in Vietnam at the time. When they came back to the States, then that addiction rate had dropped massively. And it wasn't that it wasn't available, because it was obviously still available to everyone, but it was the idea that their environment changed. They were out of the environment that was setting all the triggers, that was setting them off and setting them on this course of continuing to numb the pain in a way. Now, obviously, I know that's more of a severe example, but it's so true that changing your environment has such an impact on your life and what you do. What experience have you had with that, or what would you say to people who are stuck in that situation at the moment? It's not obviously not the heroin situation, but in terms of
I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I suppose it's funny. Even one of the guys that I was chatting to back home recently, when I went home, he was kind of seemed to, like, every time I was talking to him, he was kind of just like stuck in a rut. And he was like, "Oh, it's hard because like everyone around me is drinking and stuff." And I literally was just kind of like, just okay, but you don't have to. Like, you do not have to do it. I know it's hard, but just don't get sucked into it to the point where you just like, you're actually, because you could see he was unhappy in himself and stuff like that. And then it's like last time I went back, I'm not saying that was because of that conversation, but he'd completely changed his habits. He was like, I stopped hanging out with those people. I started running a lot. I started going to the gym a lot. He was like a completely new person, honestly. So it's like, if you, I think, pull yourself out of it and just be kind of, I suppose, be like, okay, you might potentially lose a couple of friends or lose people that you kind of socialize with a lot. You're not going to be as close to them. But if you pull yourself out of it and start putting that energy into something that's actually going to benefit you, like your physical health, looking after your nutrition and stuff, you're going to feel so much better that you're not going to want to go back to that place.
That's a great point. And I think the other thing is that a lot of times there's a lot of other people in the group thinking the same thing, but no one is going to break the cycle. No one's going to knock that first domino. And oftentimes when someone does make that change, it's the people, like, you will, obviously, as you said, you will lose some people along the way with that, but that's inevitable anyway. But the people that will stick around are the ones that make the biggest difference, I think, in that situation. Like the one,
bring people with you. You just lead the way and bring people with you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. And
even what I say to a lot of people as well is, like, even clients and stuff like that, they're clearly trying to break out of it because they're coming to me for a reason. They're coming to me to make change. So they clearly don't want to be doing that every weekend. So I'd say to them, okay, so rather than going to the pub every weekend, why don't you just get your group of friends, go to a hike, go surfing, change the activity around, bring your friends with you, because 9 times out of 10, as you said, those people don't want to be doing fucking on the piss, getting wasted every weekend either. It's just because, like, that's the norm. So it's just like, bring them, do something else, plan something else, and then before you know it, everyone will be kind of hopefully on a better path.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's it. And what are some steps then along the way? I think there were some great points what you mentioned there about going surfing, going for a hike. What are, at the individual level, what are some steps that you often try to get people, or hurdles that you get people to try get over when they're starting to get into their transformation journey? What are things that stick out the most that you say, okay, let's get over this first and then we'll deal with everything after that?
So I think a lot of the time it's like people, it's setting a foundation, really. Like, okay, so taking a deep dive into where they're currently at, their day-to-day life, their work, their sleep schedule, their previous training history, just deep dive. Okay, where are they currently right now? And then say, okay, what are the kind of changes that we can make to make you feel better on a day-to-day basis? So rather than thinking about, okay, I need to lose X amount of weight, it's like, no, first of all, we need to come up with a good routine that's actually going to, I suppose, benefit or just come up with that routine that's then going to kind of help you lose weight. But rather than just being like, I need to lose weight, it's like, okay, let's first of all set a good routine with your nutrition. Let's get you into a good routine with your training. If you're only training once a week, let's try get at least 3 times a week in. Let's just make sure we get 3 or 4 meals in a day, protein source in each meal, and get a set of bedtime, set a wake time. So it doesn't have to be anything too drastic. It's just sleep, I think, is one of the most important things. Your hydration, your nutrition, and then your thing. Just setting a foundation and getting into a good routine, not going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, waking up, smashing your alarm clock, hitting it for snooze, and then falling out of bed, going into work. Actually, okay, no, I'm going to go to bed at 10. I'm going to go to bed, wake up at 6. I'm going to have half an hour for myself in the morning before I have to get ready for work, to sit down, do a little bit of meditation or whatever. Just those small, minor kind of things is what I think kind of add up a lot of the time. And then when you're feeling better, then everything, you start to feel it, and then you just kind of, you don't want to stop. Like, I don't know that answer your question, or did I go a little
No, exactly. That's exactly what I was looking at. And the way I was phrasing it. It is building that foundation and building those consistent habits. And I see the same thing with, like, the population that I deal with is obviously a bit different in terms of its long-term injuries or chronic injuries. But it's the same thing. People get stuck in that cycle of, right, waking up in the morning 5 minutes before they have to leave the house, running out the door, and their whole day then after that is like, and then you're trying to, because you had no time in the morning to yourself, you extend the time that you stay up at night to try get more out of the day. And you're on your phone till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and you're getting up at 7 o'clock the next morning as well. I think that's the most important thing. I think for any change in life at all, it's trying to build that consistency in some way.
For sure.
Like,
even sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I feel even sometimes for myself, like there is times, don't get me wrong, I'm not fucking 100% militant every day of the week, like, but I try to have a good set times for wake time, bedtime. But there is sometimes, I might stay up a little bit later on the weekend or something like that, and then you can feel it the next day. Like I genuinely feel it myself the next day that I feel nearly hungover because I didn't get enough sleep or whatever. So it's like, really, I think that just really prioritizing the wake time and the bedtime is fucking massive, like.
Yeah, sleep is, I think people really don't understand. Like, a lot of people say, oh, I can run well off of 6 hours of sleep, or I can run well off of 5 hours of sleep. But like, you really don't understand until you get a week of 8 hours, 7 and 8 hours of sleep, the difference it makes. And
you're on a different level, like
completely different level. Like, the choices that you make on a day to day. Like, I would love to see if you had somebody who says, okay, I'd survive well on 5 and 6 hours sleep, as opposed to somebody who has been getting 7, 8 hours sleep. One single metric I would love to look at would be their phone use in that time. The amount of time that they spend on Instagram or TikTok. And I would be fairly confident to say that, and maybe this is just something that I notice myself, but the more fatigued I am, the more time I will spend mindlessly scrolling. Just that's like it, man. Wasting time.
No, that's a very, very, very good point, because even for myself, sometimes, like, as I said, like, if I'm like, oh fuck, I didn't sleep too well last night, like, I'll just be like, instead of working, I'll be like, fuck, I'll just, like, you're just kind of flicking through the phone or whatever, and you're just gonna snap out of it, and you're like, no, I need to be working. Whereas when you're on it, when you're feeling mentally sharp, it's like you're so much more productive, like, from those extra couple of hours of sleep. And I even got this, I don't know if you heard of the Whoop before. I presume you have. I got that just to really, really keep an eye on it a little bit more. But it is quite kind of eye-opening as well, and it's good to kind of, because that is something personally I did struggle with a lot as well. Like, so actually kind of just going out my way to really, really prioritize that, seeing how much sleep I do need, kind of where my health markers are at and stuff like that. I think it makes a big, big difference for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, let's actually go down that avenue of the Whoop, because I never had, or I haven't got one yet. And I know a lot of my friends have one, and a lot of people that I work with have them. What are some of the biggest, or what are some of the main benefits that you have from using the Whoop? Like, what, obviously it tracks sleep very well. It has a lot of, and I remember I was actually listening to a podcast of the guy who made the Whoop, or who I suppose the founder of it, and the technology that they've been using to do it is of the highest standard. So much so that they were, to know that was it Defense Forces that they got a lot of it from in the States. But yeah, the technology that they use is so far advanced compared to any other wearable. The other one is the Aura Ring. I think it's coming in a small bit, but I think the Whoop is still a good bit ahead of that. Aura Ring, I think, is
very, very, very popular as well, I think. Yeah, but like at the end of the day, just the reason I like I got it for myself is because I was like, okay, I am kind of struggling with my sleep a little bit. I'd like to kind of just be a little bit more aware about it. At the end of the day, I don't think it does anything that it's going to be like, holy, it's mind blowing, but it just gets you a little bit more conscious about it. It's like when you're tracking your food, you know, rather than just not tracking your food and now you're tracking your food. It's like, okay, whoa, I didn't realize I was eating so much calories from oil or whatever it is like that. It's just kind of to get you kind of, I think, more conscious about it and be like, okay, it's saying I need to get this amount of hours of sleep tonight. Let's try get to bed a little bit earlier rather than being up watching TV, flicking through my phone or whatever. It's going to benefit me much more. Tracks your strain as well, then, which is kind of cool when you're working out and stuff. And it's just like, okay, you've obviously your sleep was shit last week, but you've trained really, really hard this week. Your recovery is in a bad position, basically. Let's maybe take a day off or whatever. So it's good that kind of thing. But again, I don't look too heavily into it myself personally.
Yeah, but I suppose on a week by week or month by month basis, it's probably better to even look back and see, okay, I was sleeping whatever 6 hours, 7 hours, and I know some people can get probably too. I think you have a great perspective on it there, because some people can get too tied into it in terms of they look at it too way too caught up in it, in that like their results for sleep can actually affect their sleep the next night, because they're thinking, Jesus, I need to get 7 hours of sleep there, and they're sitting in bed like, just go to sleep. But it's I know the wearables are definitely becoming more apparent or more available, but definitely I guess a lot more people are using them at the moment for, I think, a lot of the right reasons. I think, to be honest, all the reasons that you mentioned there are perfect for it. In terms of, I guess, going away from the wearables themselves and looking at the minor habits then, outside of the sleep and outside of the consistency and the foundation, what other habits do you think that you have started to implement in your life that have made the biggest difference to your health and fitness over the last 12 months? That's a tough question. It's a tough question.
I think really focusing on my morning routine, to be honest, man. I think that is kind of like, and yeah, I think so. I think that has made a big difference for me. Is so sometimes I just roll out of bed, whatever. Like myself, I'm not, I would have went straight into work or whatever. Whereas I've actually started taking time for myself in the morning. And I know there's obviously there's like different people are just like, get up, get to work. Other people are like, have a little bit of time for yourself, whatever, yoga, cold showers, meditating, whatever it might be. But I found kind of what worked for me was just, okay, I'll get up. First thing I do is I get out, get some steps in. I then started coming home. I do 10 minutes of meditation, and then I literally have a cup of coffee and I get straight into work. And I found that just literally 15 to 20 minutes in the morning has made a huge difference for my work productivity. My sleep has improved massively by getting up and just getting some daylight exposure first thing in the morning, and actually just not getting up, sitting in my room all day or sitting in the office all day, drinking coffee. I found that getting the daylight exposure first thing in the morning, getting my meditation done, it just sets me up really, really well for everything. For sleep, then, as I said, work productivity, and then just overall kind of, I suppose, just general health. I've found has massively benefited me.
Yeah, it's huge. I think, and the morning routine as well is one that actually gets a bit of slack. I did a podcast recently on my morning routines, and I went into a bit of detail on what I was focusing on, and I think that you're right in everything that you said there. The one thing I don't do, and I should do, and I know it's going to be better for me, is getting out and getting the steps in the morning. I never do it. I should.
Man, because if I don't get them in the morning, sometimes I can be sitting at the laptop all day, and then I'm like, fuck, it's really late at night. So I found getting up, obviously drinking water along the way is hydration is the most important before you drink your coffee and all that. But I found that's been absolutely game changer, man, as well, especially because it's always sunny here as well, to get out. Steps, just move rather than looking at your phone straight away and first thing in the morning, getting daylight into your eyes and just kind of naturally waking up, I suppose, then hitting yourself with a shot of caffeine.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I think avoiding the phone as well, as you mentioned, there's a huge one. I tried to stay off it until I kind of have a set time each morning that I try to stay away from it. And I know people get pissed off at that because I know I'm up and I'm not replying to them, but to get over that side of things. But in a lot of ways, I think that leaving it off to like 9, half 9, 10 o'clock before you start scrolling, because like on the same way that you can have good habits that will build on top of each other for the rest of the day, you can also have bad habits that will stick around. And as you just mentioned, with the water is a huge one. The water, if you start drinking water in the morning, it makes it so much easier to continue drinking water for the rest of the day, as opposed to if you try to start at 3 o'clock, it makes it so much more difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge one. Yeah, staying off the phone is a big one for me anyway, for trying to avoid that.
I think, and the phone as well. Like the phone is like, if you stay off it, like if you get up, get your work done, box off kind of all your most important tasks, and then you can look at your phone. But if you're up first thing in the morning, you're looking through your phone, you fucking lose half an hour of your morning. It's like literally just going, I've done it. Like, and you're just kind of, and then you catch yourself and you're like, what am I doing? Like, and you're getting no value from it as well. Like,
yeah, that's the thing. What's in terms of the meditation side of things, do you have a certain like routine that you run through in meditation? Do you just go, you kind of set your timer and then you go through your breathing? Is there anything that you focus on, or what?
I like to do the guided meditation. So I don't know if you've heard of like Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So he has some. So literally just off YouTube. I have that Calm app as well. I was kind of working through that a little bit, but the kind of meditation that I do as well, it's like it's breath work, but it's kind of like it's a lot of visualization as well, I suppose, and kind of like manifesting kind of things as well.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of stepping into the person you want to become, that kind of side of things as well.
Okay.
Then there was kind of just flicking through a couple on YouTube. It was like just a morning gratitude one, Joe Dispenza, and then a little bit of Bob Proctor as well. They were kind of the main ones that I was listening to, and then that Calm app on the phone as well. I was listening to that as well, but more so the YouTube with I like the kind of visualizing and stepping into the person you want to become kind of one.
What's up, guys? Robbie here. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just wanted to take a quick moment to ask for your help. Could you please take a minute to leave us a rating on whatever you're listening to this right now? The ratings and reviews mean the world to us, and they help us to understand what you love about the show, as well as what we can improve on. Plus, it does actually help us reach even more listeners again. Thank you so much for your support so far, and we are getting straight back into it right now. Interesting, yeah, interesting. That's actually something that I'm myself very interested in, for two reasons. From a sports side, like from a sports aspect, the idea of visualization is huge because it helps you to pick up skills that bit faster. You can improve on the skills because we use certain brain centers that, like, if you think about lifting up a bottle of water, let's say, or if you actually do it, it's the same brain center that fires in the same way.
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting that you're talking about using it for visualizing the person you want to be. How do you, let's dive into that a small bit. What kind of traits, or what way do you look at that? Because it's very easy to like visualize the person you want to be, and then like for a lot of people it could be, okay, I want to I don't know, I want to own a Lamborghini and be like seeing myself on the top of like a hotel or whatever, like in Dubai, one that's 7-star hotel. Obviously it's easy to see that type of stuff, or not easy, but it's easy for people to jump to that type of stuff. On a minute level, on a micro level, what are the small things that you see in yourself in years to come that are like that you visualize that you want to become? What are little traits, little habits, little? Do you understand what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, I think so. So like at the end of the day, it's kind of what I kind of have, like, I suppose, like nearly I've kind of a clear understanding of where I want to be, what I want to be doing. So that I do focus a lot on that side of things. In terms of habits and stuff, like I'm not really, if I'm being 100% honest. It's kind of more so, okay, this is kind of an image of who I want to be, where I want to be, and I kind of just kind of like focus on that kind of a lot, I think. Yeah. So like with Bob Proctor and stuff, I don't know if you know him, but like there's like two parts of your brain, the conscious part and the subconscious part. So like the conscious part, there's information going in there all the time, and you have the ability to like accept it or reject it. So if you're kind of telling yourself these negative thoughts, like you're going to drill that down, and eventually it's going to trickle down to your subconscious part of your mind. Your subconscious then goes down to your body, which becomes your actions, your habits, and that's kind of what the outside world sees, and they're your results. So a lot of it, what a lot of it is to do is, in your conscious part, you have that ability, as I said, to accept it or reject it. Put positive kind of I suppose thoughts into your head, and like, okay, you have a positive self-image of yourself. This is the person that I am. This is the person that I want to become. These are the traits that I have, whatever it might be. And then once you really focus on that you literally start to believe that yourself. So you might have kind of bad self-image about something. So there might be something that you don't have, and you're kind of continuing to get that result. But once you change your thoughts, and then your thoughts basically come into your subconscious, that then becomes your results that you get. So that's kind of a heavily what it's focused on as well. It's just kind of the conscious and subconscious kind of part of the things.
Excellent. Yeah, that's huge as well. Sorry, did I cut you off there?
No, that's cool.
Yeah, because there's a guy, John Keogh. He wrote the book Mind Power. It's a book that I honestly per se it was probably one of the first books that I ever read, which is an awful thing to say, but it was years ago. I was a young lad, so I'll get away with it. But it basically talks about the positive mindset, the language that you use, how that affects your subconscious. Very similar to what you're talking about there. And I think that's huge because there is positive and negative cycles that, and I see this most commonly with back pain is probably when I see it the most, is that people get something small. Everyone gets injuries, but when it's your back, people obviously start to think about it in a different way because there's a lot of nerves and your spinal cord and everything is there. So
Yeah.
the idea of the conscious thought around a back injury is amplified massively because it's just nonstop. Everything, like any movement, it's like, oh Jesus, anything that they do, try to go down, bend something, and all they're doing is they're reinforcing it. Exactly as you explained there, reinforcing it on a conscious level. But if you're doing that for weeks or months at a time, slowly but surely that starts to creep down. And then you don't have to do it anymore. You consciously don't have to think about it anymore because your body just starts to react.
What we do on a daily basis, what your day looks like, what you do when you wake up in the morning. Everyone has these things. Like if it is that you get up and you sit down on the couch and you're on your phone, that's habit. So what you need to do is it's the small little habits that you need to kind of change and tweak. So focusing on, so let's say that's literally what you're programmed to do. You're programmed to get up. A lot of people do this exact same thing every morning. They wake up, they brush their teeth, they sit into the car, they drive to work the same way. So that's literally programmed. But if you want to kind of change an outcome or change where you want to be, change a result, you need to make change. So a little habit that you can change there is, okay, I get up, rather than just brushing my teeth, sitting in the car, driving to work, I now get up, to brush my teeth, I sit in the car, but now I started playing some podcasts that are actually going to benefit me long term. And that little change right there can make a huge change further down the line. So it's just these little kind of things that you kind of have to start kind of changing, I suppose. So change requires change. Yeah. So just by making a small little adjustment here, that can change the outcome much further down the line here. So it's important to kind of understand that, I suppose, and what you're feeding your brain with is so important, because your thoughts, as I said, kind of become your reality.
Yeah, excellent point as well with the small change. Like it does take that, and a lot of times when people think of where they want to be or what they want to become, it seems like such a gap that they have to bridge. Like it seems like a massive thing that they have to get through, but as you just said there, it could literally be as simple as put on a podcast related to health and fitness.
Man, honestly, I'm sorry for interrupting you there, but literally that was the change that I made. It was like I was getting up, I started studying a little bit earlier, and I started I remember I used to go to work. I was sitting in, or I'd go to work on break, covered in absolute shit from fucking saving in Vancouver, and there'd be people sitting in Starbucks. I used to go to Starbucks every day. They'd be sitting on their laptops. They'd be having a cup of coffees, they'd be having meetings. I was like, that's exactly what I want. That is what I want my life to look like, to be able to do that at 2:00, 1:00 on a Monday. I'm sitting down in, working in a nice location rather than shoveling shit at the end of the day. So then I was like, okay, how am I going to get that? And just by making those adjustments, by making that adjustment in the morning to actually studying, and then in my commute, I had about 2 hours commute every day, listening to podcasts. That at the end of the day is what got me to where I am right now, to be, in the position that I'm in. So it's those small little things that are just kind of moving you in the positive direction, I suppose, in the right direction, that over time, just do them continuously, keep doing them, and it'll get you to where you want to be eventually.
Yeah. And hindsight is 2020 as well, in terms of when you look back at that, I bet you at the time, you probably didn't think, okay, this podcast is going to let me live in Dubai in a couple of years, me listening to this podcast every day for an hour. It's the small things that make the biggest difference, I think, anyway.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. It's literally what you're for sure. The small little positive changes, just replacing a negative one with a positive one. And that alone can fucking, you could, I'm genuinely, I never thought I'd be in this position where I'm at right now. If I'm being honest, I didn't even dream about it when I was younger. But then once you realize that you can do it, then the ceiling just raises, and you're like, well, okay, if I could do that, I can do much, much more, and I can get to a much, much better position if I put the work in. Yeah.
And actually, let's go down the avenue of, as what you were saying there. So you need to listen, you obviously need to build that small habit. You need to listen to it. Before we jumped on the podcast here, we were talking about, I was talking about how is business going? How's everything going for you? And you were saying, yeah, it's excellent in Dubai. You're obviously around a lot of people that are doing the same thing, and it improves your standard, it improves the level of what you have to do, and the level of what you feel is achievable is a huge thing. For people, this is going to be from a different level, but from people who are trying to get into health and fitness and trying to make a transformation or trying to make a big change in their life, and we obviously talked about getting out of the bad environments. What are some factors that you think are like a good environment to improve people's health and fitness? Like, what are things what's an environment that you think is beneficial, is positive towards making that change? What are aspects of an environment, let's say?
So like, so how do you mean? Like, just what environments would you put yourself into if you were, or?
Yeah, exactly. What environments would you put yourself into? And I suppose while you're thinking about that, one for me, in a way, is that I obviously the main thing that I do right now, or main training that I do, is jiu-jitsu based a lot of the time. And in Bali, that was obviously a huge thing for me. I loved it. I was in an environment there that a lot of people were competing, and then I was thinking for myself, if I want to up the level of the skill that I'm working on at the moment, where's the next best place to go? There's two areas you can go. You can go to the States, and I can focus on getting to Austin, like, which is probably the main place in the world. But I also wanted to learn a language, so I could go to South America, where it originated. Obviously, it originated in Japan for anyone that's listening, but Brazil is where they perfected it. So I was like, how close could I get to Brazil? And I wanted to learn Spanish, obviously. So how close could I get to Brazil that I could train in that? Because I knew that if I was the closer I was to Brazil, that the environment that I would be in, that the standard would be way better. Okay,
yeah, sure.
So that's one way I was thinking about it, is like, if I could get into that environment more. Is there anything that relates that you can that's top of mind that relates to health and fitness in that way that you can?
From my perspective, from just a person that's trying to get into it, or how do you mean?
Yeah, let's look at your perspective first, and then we'll dive into a person that's trying to get into it.
Yeah, first, I suppose for me, like, as I was saying to you before the call, like, Dubai is probably the hub of fitness at the moment. Like, and like the top coaches, athletes, whatever you want to call them, they're in Dubai at the end of the day. And I know personally for myself, like, I definitely had hit kind of I suppose a position, a standard that I'd set for myself, kind of in a way, from like what I was like, okay, this is how my business runs, whatever. Then I remember meeting some guys over here, like English dudes. Just kind of got chatting to them, and then just started kind of getting friendly with them and started hanging out with them a lot more. And I could see that, yeah, they were doing actually more than me. They had different standards set for themselves. So then the standards that they had set for themselves then became my standards. So I was like, okay, this is where I need to be at to get me to that next level. And then as I said, like, Dubai is probably the place where, you know, a lot of online coaches go and stuff like that, and people that I suppose, you know, I'd look up to in a way and kind of want to get to that level. So it's good to be in that environment, because I'm like, you're a small fish in a big pond at the end of the day. You know, you're kind of like, okay, you're at the bottom of the barrel. It's like, how can I start working my way up this way? Okay, what are these guys at the top doing that I can then kind of start to implement in my business, and then just be consistent with it. And I think the big one is be patient with it as well. Not to be like, well, I'm doing what they're doing, I'm not getting instant return, blah, 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 blah. You have to know that these people are probably 10 years ahead of you. So you need to just be patient with that. Put the work in for sure. Always be continuing to level up, and make sure that you are consistent with that, and not get disheartened if you're not getting an instant return. But being in that environment, I suppose, as you done, is put yourself into an environment where that's what you really want to go down that path with jiu-jitsu, with learning a language. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to really, really grow a monster of an online coaching business. I'll go to Dubai where people have those kind of businesses. Put yourself in that environment, and then it's just infectious, and it's like what you're doing. It's probably the quickest kind of, I suppose, nearly a shortcut. The best way you're going to get yourself to where you want to be is by surrounded by those kind of people and people that are where you want to be.
Yeah, that's a great way of explaining it as well. I think that you made a couple of great points there along the way about how you do have to be around that. And I that was a huge thing when I went to Bali as well, is that, like, there was a lot of people from a business perspective, a lot of people doing some, like, excellence, like, had their business set up so well, and had seemed from the outside have a good work-life balance as well for me, which is obviously a huge thing from my perspective that I really wanted to focus on as well. Now, we can discuss this, because as you were saying that, I was trying to think, what is a good environment? Like, how can somebody put themselves into a good environment to help them achieve their health and fitness goals? Like, when I think about that now, the first thing I think about is obviously getting into a gym that has a positive impact on people. Getting into a gym that there's certain people that you want to be like. For other people, it could be getting into like a walking club or joining a running club. Yeah, is anything else that sticks out to you, or anything else that you can think of that we can hash it out here for a second?
No. I think, like, as you said, like those things are very, very important. Because even I was back home, like, and my mother is doing like a park. She does the park run
Yeah, yeah.
every I think it's every like Saturday or something. But I went down with it. I went down with her, me, my sister, and a couple of lads brought them down with it as well. And it was actually really, really good. It was a laugh, like, but if that kind of environment is really good, I think. Like it's really, really good to like group classes and stuff like that. I think if you don't know what you're doing, or you don't want to kind of, maybe you're kind of just looking to get from off the couch into something like a group class, like a running club, a walking club, a swimming class and stuff like that. I think group environments is definitely, I know people kind of slate on some like group classes and stuff like that, but I think even for myself, like I do boxing and stuff like that. I like going in, meeting the lads, do a little bit of boxing and just have a change up as well. So I think, yeah, just joining some sort of community that has some sort of an interest in. If you're coming from, I feel like if you're coming from, you're not really doing much, you're just looking to try and improve, go join a class, join a community or something like that, or and definitely get into the gym. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. And then what level then do you feel does it become more important to reach out and on an individual level start to look at getting a coach?
I suppose at any level, like from word go 100% to the very, very, very top end of an athlete. Like you see athletes are high-end athletes obviously have coaches, so there's no like perfect time. I don't think. I suppose it's kind of finding where you're at and a coach that's actually going to kind of match that. So there's no point someone just saying like, oh, they've never been to the gym before and going to someone that's like a prep coach that normally gets people into stage. It's just not going to work, and then you might have a bad experience, and then you're like, well, fuck that, it's not for me. Find someone that kind of, I suppose, like online, yourself, there's so many people now. Everyone kind of has a different message. Everyone kind of promotes something different, I suppose. So just find someone that's kind of relatable to where you're at. And then kind of, as I said, from word go, if you need, because from word go is when you're going to see the most progress, and it's going to save you so much time, so much, I suppose, headache, and just kind of educate you along the way rather than trying to figure things out on your own.
Yeah, it's true. It does speed up the process massively in lots of ways. What are some coaches or mentors that have helped you? Now, you don't have to name them personally, but in different aspects along the way. Is that like, I know for a fact, like, let's say Dobbins is excellent for this. Dobbins had about 4 coaches going at the same time for different things. He's very, very good for it. How are you for that? Is that something that you look into more, or do you kind of focus on working with one person, or what way?
Yeah, no, for sure. So like I'd always would have reached out. Like I must say, like the very, 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 and I think that was one thing that kind of really helped me at the start. Is I've had a coach since I became a coach and started looking at a coach. I've had a coach, always had a coach. So it's kept me accountable to my training, my nutrition. But if ever there was anything I was unsure about, I'd just reach out to them and ask. And luckily enough, the guys that I had were really, really helpful at the start, like in terms of business and in terms of actually coaching people and helping them get results. So a big shout out to Mike Fatboy Slim, I suppose. I'll give him a shout out there. Even to this day, like he's he was definitely, I suppose you could call him a mentor, and someone that helped me massively. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of the things that you've learned along the way working with coaches? Like what?
And then working with, I suppose, like from I've obviously had mentors and stuff like that as well that have helped me, that have like maybe different sticking points that I've had when maybe in terms of like prices, when I was like, hesitant to bump up prices and stuff like that, and kind of had like, I suppose, like self-doubt about it and stuff like that. They've helped me break those barriers, to help me onboard another coach that now works for me, to help me kind of, I suppose, set up my systems and stuff. So from everyone you'd gain little bits. And like, I'm always, I suppose, with everyone that I work with, trying to take the best parts from it, implement in my business, and just make, I suppose, create the best business I personally can myself. And like, I've invested heavily into different coaches, mentors, courses, stuff like that. So I know right now I'm in a good position, and I'm kind of up to date with all the kind of the stuff, I suppose, to operate a good business.
Yeah. Okay. And who then, Sheamie, are the type of people that you work with on a day to day? What's the population would you say that you work with mostly?
What I'm kind of like, the kind of guys and girls, like it's mainly guys, being 100% honest. I do work with some females, but personally it's guys that are, not like, there's a variety of people. So I wouldn't just say I'm with for a general population. I'm kind of with guys that want to be held to a high standard at the end of the day. I want, like, the kind of people I want to work with is people that are like really looking to just take their physique, but also, even just their mindset and just their kind of the discipline that they have themselves, and show them what they can actually do when they go in on something. So it's people that are looking to really kind of just level up, that aren't, just like making excuses the whole time and stuff like that. That I will literally be there. If they're making excuses, I'll call people out on it. Like, I have no issues with that. I'll be like, we said we were going to do this, it's like, let's make sure we do it. And the only reason I'm kind of do that is because they came to me for that reason. Like, I make that pretty clear at the start. It's like, you have these goals to set. I'm going to do everything in my power to help you get there. And then I suppose I like to kind of push people with the physical transformation side of things, push them, because like physical transformation is quite mentally challenging as well. Like if you're pushing yourself to like into photo shoot prep and stuff like that, it can get quite tough. And you have these kind of, I suppose, doubts and voices that come into your head. And it's just like, no, keep pushing through it. Finish off what you said you were going to do. Really, really see what you can achieve when you go all in. And then when you do that with your physique, they're like, it's just that structure, that routine that you get from that. It's like, okay, well, why can't you then transfer that into another area, like starting a business, with study, trying to improve your career? It's like taking those habits, like, and the traits, and I suppose the discipline, and then applying that to other areas of your life. I think that's the kind of big message that I want to get across to people, is like, push yourself, see what you can do with your physique, build up those disciplines, and then transfer it into other areas.
Yeah, that's and I think what you mentioned there is like obviously the habits, the traits, and that. What are some of the traits that you've noticed that have that are consistent in people that make that change? Because obviously with a physical transformation, it's something it's either there or it isn't. It's very obvious if you've met it or not in that way. What are some of the traits that you've seen people who are successful in making that change?
So I suppose like actually just being like consistent with things, I think a lot of people that, so in terms of traits that have been beneficial to, or traits that they have, or traits that they've kind of built, or what?
I would say, traits that they've kind of built. Because in my perspective, I think everything can be learned. Like, I think that, like, even though if you feel like you're not disciplined, that can be learned. Like in a way, consistency can be learned. Like, what is consistency on a day to day? It's getting up and making sure that you're ticking off the same boxes each day. From my perspective, that's
sure.
what
I think routine, like creating a routine, that is very, 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 very important. And then actually being consistent with that routine, and then just being disciplined with that routine, that when obstacles do pop up, it's like you don't just use that as an excuse. Like, for an obstacle pops up that I don't know what was off the top of my head, the gym closed early or something like that. You don't just say, I couldn't get my cardio in, now I'm just going to go home and have a takeaway. So just a simple example, but like, it's like, okay, I didn't get my cardio in this day. I'm still going to be on point with my nutrition. I'll make up for it tomorrow. And then just kind of being like, not falling at the first hurdle, and not kind of having, I suppose, that mindset of like, it's not working out for me, I'm not going to do it. It's like, okay, things aren't working out for me as of now, but I'm going to make sure that I keep having that perseverance, I suppose, and making sure that I'm just kind of following through on what I said I was going to do, and then achieving that end outcome, and then getting that result that you do want at the end of the day.
Yeah, excellent. Because I think that was a huge one, is about like the idea of falling at the first hurdle is obviously such a common thing that happens to people, but the example of, if the gym closes, do you just drop it then and just say, okay, right, that's that session missed. I couldn't, it wasn't in my power to do it. And I know a lot of people do that. A lot of people just, I think it's easier to like shift the blame onto something else instead of taking responsibility for saying, okay, right, I didn't get the gym in that day, but maybe I can start to make my sessions a small bit longer, 10 minutes longer for the rest of the week, just to get the most out of it. Just to get it in. I think responsibility is a huge one in the people making change. For me, I think responsibility is a massive one that a lot of people miss out on, or a lot of people that they don't recognize the importance of just taking responsibility. A lot of the times, just even if you feel it's not your problem, if you feel that you could blame it on someone else, picking up on that mindset is huge. And just taking responsibility for it. Because if you don't gain anything from blaming someone else. You never gain anything from that. And shifting that responsibility. That's something that I always push with clients that I'm working with, especially if things are going hard for them, if things are going wrong. Like, it's obviously very difficult to take responsibility when things don't feel like they're going in the way that they are going. But I think it's so important.
For sure, man. And just, I think having that clear roadmap that you do have, and then just doing, like, as you said, just taking responsibility. Okay, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. Simple as that. Just actually do what you say you were going to do, and not just feeling like the shop was closed. I couldn't get my chicken. Okay, I'm going to go get a takeaway instead. No, that's bullshit. Like, at the end of the day, it's like you can manage these situations. Go to a different shop. Maybe you have a tin of tuna at home or something like that. Just change things up a little bit. Don't just be like any little spot, because I think that's a big thing with people. It's like any bit of inconvenience. It's like, oh well, it was out of my control. Whatever. I can't. It's not. It's just not going to work out today. It's like, just own it. Figure out what you're going to do to make sure that you do what you said you were going to do, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to finish it on as well. I think like, even looking at that, how people can make the change in their own life, it's really about just not falling at the first hurdle, and then not falling at the second hurdle. And there's a good book by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. I often mention it. I don't know, have you come across it?
No, never heard it.
It's excellent. It basically just talks about looking at the obstacle that's in your way as, all right, how do I get around this? How can I gain from this obstacle, as opposed to looking at it as an obstacle. Look at it as nearly like a test in a lot of ways.
An excuse. But that's a very good point, because I always kind of say to people, is like, okay, there's an obstacle in our way. You either fall at this obstacle, use it as an excuse to fall back into your old habits, or you use it to actually level yourself up. That the obstacle is going to help you level up, whether it's physically, mentally, whatever it is. View that as an obstacle, and it can be quite hard and it can be quite difficult as well. But it's like, you need to lean into the hard, difficult things as well to keep continuing to progress.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's a perfect one, a perfect way to leave it as well. What, I suppose, Sheamie, how can people find you?
Instagram. That's my main go-to. So Sheamie P on Instagram, and then hopefully looking at actually starting on my own podcast soon, and
nice.
potentially a little bit of YouTube now that I'm out here in Dubai as well. So I might make the most out of that.
Nice. Yeah, nice. The videos are top class. I was saying it to you before, and the content that you're putting out is excellent as well. So anyone that is interested, definitely check it out at Sheamie P, or Sheamie.p, you said, is it?
Sheamie P.
Sheamie P, sorry. So, thanks a million for jumping on, Sheamie. Excellent podcast. Pleasure. I think people take a lot from that. And anyone, I suppose, that it's looking to make that change, is looking, obviously, we were talking about reaching out to a coach, and Sheamie is getting some excellent results with the clients that he's working with. But yeah, Sheamie, it's been a long time coming. I really, really appreciate you jumping on, and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, my man. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're looking to learn more about what we do, as well as check out any of the mobility and Bria programs we have available, just head over to the description of this podcast and you will find a link to all the programs there. As always, thank you for listening, and I will chat to you all again in the next episode. Have a good one.